Life is full of work and stress. Parenting can be a mess. Being a woman is hard enough without adding on that extra stuff. We'll cover topics of every kind. Helpful resources we will find. We'll even drink a bottle of wine. Join us. It will be a real good time. Hi, I'm Amanda.
And I'm Nikki.
And welcome to Working Mom's Whine, where we drink a bottle of wine
and whine about our crazy, busy, stressful working mom lives. Mm-hmm. And when we can, pull together resources that will help the situations we discuss.
Yep, but there's no help for today's situation. But we'll get into that in a minute.
Being a trust fund baby might help.
Yeah, that might help. Why don't you guys just go get some generational wealth real quick, and then everything will be fine.
I'm a little old and beat up, but I'll try to be a trophy wife.
Well, do you want to describe the wine since you picked it up?
Yeah. So today's wine is Tattoo Girl Rosé from the Columbia Valley. It says on the scale of lively to smooth, it's in the middle. Light to full, it's in the middle. But dry to sweet, it's on the dry side.
Oh, it's definitely dry.
Mm-hmm. For centuries, wine and tattoos have been a part of our culture. As grapes evolve into beautiful and complex wine, tattoos transform a canvas into a visual display of personal narrative. Our wine celebrates the individual and delivers an elevated experience. Suggested pairing with sushi, your best friend's front porch, and a relaxing yacht rock record, which we had to look up because I've never heard of yacht rock.
Mm-hmm. It's extremely disappointing when you do look it up. So
it's a nice little rosé. It's very light and it's nice and cool, which is great because right now it's like 90-something degrees.
It's really hot outside.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't had a rosé in a while, I don't think.
No, I think we maybe only done one even.
Yeah.
Was that the Cali 19 Crimes rosé? Did we do that one yet? The Snoop Dogg rosé?
Yes, we did do that one.
I do remember looking at that one because it was in the Walmart pickup, and that's what I used to do for my groceries. So I'm sure we did it at some point.
Well, there's another. He has a white, I guess, that I don't think we've done yet. So we'll have to add that on there. Today we're going to whine about cars or vehicles in particular. Wait. Well, it's not in particular. It's the opposite. Vehicles in general. Not even tipsy yet.
They're expensive. They're obnoxious. Mm-hmm. They're unreliable.
Mm-hmm. And you're told not to buy a new one because the minute you drive off the lot, it depreciates greatly. Mm-hmm. And they're so expensive. And then when you buy a used one, you feel like you're just sinking so much money into it. Where's the line?
Right. Which is the better investment? The cheaper one that you have to put gobs into yearly,
right?
Or the more expensive one that maybe lasts a few years before you have to start putting gobs into it yearly, but you still wind up doing that in the end. And can you pay it off first before you have to start doing that?
That's what we were talking about with Brandon's current car.
Yeah.
He was thinking to himself the other day, like how much he had bought it for and how much we had spent on it in repairs. And I think between the price we initially bought it for and then everything we fixed on it so far, it came up to $18,000. And it's like, we could have gotten maybe not now, but before all the COVID nonsense, could have gotten a middle-sized car for that.
Yeah.
Although he does have a big, nice SUV. It's supposed to be like a luxury SUV that we got used. And just the fact that we're so dependent on cars to begin with.
Yes.
And not just, it can't just be like, oh, you need a car. Mm-hmm. You need two cars, potentially more. Because if both of you are working, then you each need your own car to get to and from work because there's the other parent then has to handle ballet or soccer or trips to the dentist or whatever, taking the kids to the nanny, whatever. So it's impossible to work out a one car situation as well. Mm-hmm. So now you have to buy two of these darn things.
And that's coming from a couple who work at the same place.
Yes.
They work in the same building and it's still impossible to coordinate. I work from home and I still can't live without a car.
Yeah.
I can't get Ari to and from her dad's for any sort of visitation without a car, medical appointments. I I could work from home and have my groceries delivered and have Ari ride the school bus, but it still need a car.
Yeah. And I know it's
crazy.
easy to like romanticize things that we're not currently involved in ourselves. But like I look at Japan, for instance, where they walk or bike everywhere. And it's like, yeah, it's easy to look at the city and be like, okay.
And their kids can ride the transit station without being kidnapped. Like,
yeah, you can put a small child on a train and they know what they're doing and no one's going to bother them. Yep. Yeah, it's crazy. So it would also be nice.
I can't even let my kid walk to the car by herself.
Yeah. And some things are just too spread out here anyway. Like, it would be a whole day trip to walk to the nearest grocery store and back. And then you have all that stuff. But even if you could limit it to like only using the car when you had to, we would be in so much better shape. The environment would be in so much better shape.
Yeah.
We would be spending a lot less money on gas and car repairs and all of that nonsense.
Car insurance.
Yeah.
And driving is getting worse and worse. Like,
yes. I feel like people are out to kill me every day now.
I don't know if people are just like bigger jerks than before, or if I just was more carefree and didn't notice as much. Maybe my anxiety was lower. I don't know. But it's like anytime I drive now, I almost get into an accident, or I watch people almost get into an accident, or I just watch people like today driving to your house. It's a 2-lane highway and people are going 60, 65, probably more like 70, but 60 is what you're supposed to be going, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going 65 because that's the highest I will allow myself to go because I don't want to get arrested. And which I know is not the consequence for speeding. Okay, I know that.
I mean, it can be.
It can be. I'm driving and I see one of those big like gravel trucks, and he has gotten into the fast lane because one of the on-ramps had come up and they have short time to merge and there was a lot of people. So he got over to allow people in, right? So now he's got his blinker on to go back into the slow lane, but it's a long string of cars, so he's waiting for somebody to let him in.
Yep.
The motorcycle is right behind him. They come up a hill, and he chooses that time to come out from behind the gravel truck while its blinker is on and it's getting ready to move over into a space that's opening and take that opening and go right around him. And I was like, you saw the gravel truck start to go and jerk back. And I was like, dude, you are going to die. And you're not wearing a helmet. You're not wearing any protective gear because you're allowed to do that here, which is stupid.
Yeah.
And like, every day it's something like that. I don't want to drive anymore.
Yeah.
I used to really, really, sorry, Mom, make fun of my mom for not wanting to drive anywhere, not wanting to go out after dark, not wanting to drive in the rain. And I used to think, what's the big deal? You know how to drive. It's not that hard to drive and that stuff. But the older I get, the more I get it. It does get harder. It gets harder to see. It gets harder to react quickly. And drivers get worse and worse and worse.
Yes.
And our area in particular is expanding too quick for the infrastructure. All the apartment buildings and housing and subdivisions going in. And it's just a lot of people in a small space.
Right.
And a lot of people who grew up with it being a big, vast, open countryside rural area.
Yeah.
And so they aren't driving well in the, more city-like traffic.
Right.
It's just a compounding problem.
Yes. And then an accident happens, and then this 2-lane highway is backed up for like 15 miles because it's going to take a long time to get everyone through there if they're not turning you around or making you sit on the highway for hours.
It's intense.
Yeah. And there are a lot of motorcycle accidents out here, partially because the way to turn onto the highway isn't great. They don't have overpasses at every exit at this point. There's still a couple where you're just trying to sneak your way out into that traffic that's already going. I almost said only going. The traffic that's already going 60 miles an hour plus. And I know that some of them are being reckless, like the dude you ran into. I see so many motorcycle drivers where I'm like, this is why we have the yellow signs, because you're not being safe on your motorcycle. But then I see other cases where it's like, no, they were being safe, and like the SUV didn't see them or whatever. Yeah. So it's just like, if everybody would slow down and, either plan properly for getting to where you need to get at the right time, or just everyone needs to agree to be chill that, lateness might happen. But at least we are all alive.
Follow the rules. Why is it so hard to follow the rules? I feel like I got really lucky with my car, and lucky because I was friends with someone who at the time was looking for an SUV, and I wanted a crossover, and she was friends with some mechanics in their town who were just a small shop, very trustworthy. They aren't the guys who are going to upcharge, overcharge, whatever. They're very honest.
Yeah.
And they've been working with her for years because she had a fancy BMW that was very, finicky and expensive to fix when it did need fixing and all of that. And so when she was looking for her next car, she was like, okay, so we've been dealing with this for years. What would you recommend if I'm looking at this kind of a car? And they told her that Kia and Hyundai were the best of the best as far as the crossover SUVs. They came in the least amount for repairs, and when they had repairs, they were not super expensive, and they lasted a very long time. And then I was also working at a hospital, and there was a guy who did transport for kids, and he would pick them up at the children's home they lived at and drive them 3 to 4 hours to come to the hospital when they needed to for behavioral health care. And he drove a Hyundai and said that they were amazing. He had 1,000 gajillion million miles on it and only had to replace like some belts in it every once in a while. And so I went out and bought the same car that he had, and which was also the brand that my friend's mechanic recommended. And it has lasted me. I bought it. It was used for a year by Enterprise, and I bought it off them with maybe I think there was 20,000 miles on it.
Maybe that's the way we should go for our next car.
Yeah. And I got it in 2012, but it was a 2011.
Yeah.
And it is still rocking. Her name is Sandy because she gets full of beach sand all the time now that we live on the lake. And I've had to make, I think, 2 repairs, and they were under $1,000, which isn't too shabby. The most expensive thing about her has been the tire replacement I have to do every few years, which is normal. So,
and the fact that anybody could steal it.
Well, yeah, there's that.
But and that was just recent.
And I think there is a fix for that. I got probably some notice in the mail, but I ain't taking my car to the garage to get these things fixed. Who has time for that?
No one. Not to mention, for the most part, I feel like you're not at super big risk for that to actually be a concern.
I drive, 45 minutes. I guess, it's probably more maybe it's an hour when you count both directions.
Yeah.
To my co-parents' house, twice a week. And that's the furthest I really drive. Everything else is pretty darn local to me. So it's not the worst. I do take a very roundabout way to get to his house because my car does not have any get up and go. I can't accelerate quick enough to get on the highway at certain points. I take a long back way to get onto the highway a very slow way. Yeah.
Ugh, Nikki.
Even to come to your house, I don't get on the one highway and switch to the second one. I take the highway I live off of all the way down.
You should probably fix that.
I can't afford another car. That's another thing we're whining about today. I can't afford a car payment.
Yeah.
I can't even find a used car at this point because the market is really bad for that. And so I told Amanda, if my car breaks down today, I'd be effed.
Yeah. I was talking about that with Brandon too, because my car, so I'm a Honda girl, and the parts are expensive, but also repairs happen so infrequently that to me it's worth it.
And the car lasts high mileage.
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty sure they all get to 300 or over 300 before I finally sell them to a junker.
Yeah.
So
I want to say mine's getting close to 200.
Yeah. And yours, you can come at me if you want. It's the foreign-made cars. They just work better. So, sorry.
It is a foreign-made car.
Although I will say Brandon had a Toyota that was very faithful, and a Nissan. No, wait.
I've heard Subarus are good. Is that foreign? I don't even know.
So.
I know nothing about cars.
Anything that sounds like it's a
it's probably foreign. I dated a guy who was very much pro-union American cars.
Yeah.
And I was like, when the Hyundai dies, I am not buying an American car. They are fix or repair daily, you know?
Right.
Like, no, I'm not doing it.
Right.
I had a Chevy and it was bad. I was thankful for it at the time because it wasn't actually my car. I was driving something else and just gotten married, and we were supposed to go on our honeymoon to Branson because poor and, and very young. We were very young. And my dad let me borrow a Chevy Cobalt that he had purchased recently so that we would get there in one piece. And he had been letting me drive it a lot, and I started making like half the payment, and then eventually I bought the car off of them.
Yeah.
Or just made the payments myself, whichever it was. I don't even remember. It was so long ago.
But
I wound up driving that car until I bought the Hyundai because, it wasn't doing so hot.
Mine's a little rough around the edges.
Yeah.
But it works fine. I don't know if it's actually the power steering. It feels like the power steering goes out once in a while. I say once in a while. Multiple times every time I drive it. Like sometimes it will turn totally fine, and it's gotten to the point where when it turns normally, it weirds me out. I'm like, why is this working so nicely? But most of the time when I'm trying to turn into a spot,
Help, guys, help.
I know. And we've looked at the fluid. The fluid's fine. It's not that. But I haven't taken it in to actually be like, okay, somebody tell me what's wrong with this thing.
Yeah.
But when it gets really, really hot outside, it works fine. It's just when it's normal temperature or cold that it really starts to... Anyway,
if anybody out there hears this description and knows what it might be, please comment below.
That would be great.
We're too poor to take our cars and to get work done on them when they haven't actually completely stopped moving.
Yeah.
And then it's an emergency.
Yeah. And then it's emergency costs. But other than that, and there's like 4-ish lights that are on at all times, but we all know it's because of a defective sensor and not actually a problem. It's fine.
My tire sensor is that right now. It's just on all the time.
That's
and they said, well, it's like $150 per sensor.
Yeah.
So I'm like, that's not worth it to me.
I have an $80 sensor in my tire related to the all-wheel drive.
Yeah.
And so all 4 of the buttons are like all-wheel drive or something wheel drive related. So I was like, okay, we'll fix that one day when we fix like my AC itself works, but the back blower doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
But the back blower you have to dig into to get, so it's going to be stupidly expensive. So I was like, okay, we'll come back and do that at some point. And we just haven't, because my car is small enough that like the air will just go all the way back anyway. So I'm like, whatever, no one's dying. This is fine. But we want to obviously start replacing our cars, and mine is first up to be replaced. But we're also trying. I know I've been talking about this on the podcast for over a year now.
I say throw in the towel.
Well, if there was another house worth moving into, we would. But every time one pops up, it immediately gets taken before we even have a chance to be like, So
Let's
I don't
tell the
want
whole
to
story. Have we? Have you talked about that on here?
I think so, but it's been a while.
Okay.
But when even were we looking? Was it last summer? What made us start looking?
The house.
Yeah, what made us start looking that? I know we only have 2 bathrooms here. So
I think you were talking about needing more bedrooms too, like for the kids.
Yeah. Before we lived in this house, we were renting from, Brandon and I were renting from my parents, our parents. I didn't want to say Brandon and then that was weird.
Yeah.
But we were renting, and with the intent to buy, because they were in another city at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were in a house that they were renting to buy later, and we were renting their house to buy later. And then I got laid off at my job, and we were like, well, we can't do that now. So I did some work from home for a while. And because of that, you can't use anything with variable pay right away when you're buying a home. Most places are going to want an 18-month to 2-year history before you can use that. Because I want to be able to take an average of how much you make and make sure that what they're qualifying you on now is not going to change 2 months down the road.
Right.
So we knew we could only use Brandon's income, which for a while wasn't an issue. We just continued to rent from my parents, whatever. They end up coming back into the area, and we're like, okay, we'll all just temporarily live in this house until either they decide to buy somewhere or we decide to buy somewhere. And we did that for a little bit, and then I found out I was pregnant with my 4th kid. And I was like, this is not going to be enough space for everybody. So we start looking at homes on Brandon's income only. We find this house. We actually got a really good deal on this house. And move into it, but it's only got 2 bathrooms. And when we were looking at this house, I said, 2 bathrooms is not going to be enough. And Brandon was like, it'll be fine. And I'm like, it's fine now. When we have...
Wait till your daughter becomes a teenager. It will not be fine.
Well, even too, like, the fact that, like, I think at the time Silas was not potty trained.
Yeah.
And Jack was not yet born. So Silas gets potty trained. Jack is born. Even before he's potty trained, we're having issues with bathrooms. Eliana's getting older. And yes, wanting to spend time in the bathroom. Even Lucas will spend a lot of time in the shower. But...
I mean, we grew up in a house where 3 girls shared 1 bathroom.
Yeah.
And it was sometimes tight.
Yeah. And we were always running out of hot water. And
yeah.
But the real issue would come when, like, someone was sick or we all had a stomach bug or, say, Brandon's mom comes to spend the night. And it's just like there's many situations where you have someone in both bathrooms and someone else is going, oh, I'm only 4 years old and I've really got to pee right now. You know? Right. And it's like, what do we do? Do we put them in the car and drive down to the gas station? So
well, it's pee. You just teach them to pee in the backyard in the dark, right?
That's true.
Only on emergencies.
Yeah. Don't scare your
neighbors.
Please
Please don't be the kid that does that all day, every day.
Oh my gosh. But we started looking around last summer, and it was around that time that we knew we had found a house. The guy it was almost like a done deal because no one else could even go look at it. The dude was being really difficult about scheduling things. Yeah. And we came in and just like, we had the kids with us. He loved the family. Like he was there while we were looking around.
Her kids are pretty darn cute.
They can be, yeah.
They're all redheads and like
I slept them
bright redheads, you know.
I slipped them all a $5 for talking the guy into selling the house to us. And we just I kept saying things like, oh, this home is so beautiful. And I wasn't lying. Like, it's a great home. And I love the bathroom setup in that home. And it's got a pool in the backyard. And we just like gushed about it the whole time we were there. And he bought into the excitement. He's like, all right, this is the family I'm selling it to. But he had issues finding where he was going to go. It was still at the point where it was almost impossible to find housing in the area he wanted to move to. And they had another home that they were thinking, like they already owned it and they were thinking about moving into it. And that home, unfortunately, fell victim to a natural disaster. So between that and some other things, he didn't move out as quickly as he thought he was going to. Eventually, his agent was like, hey, we need to let them out of this contract if we're not going to actually set a closing date. And things kind of got put on hold. And they said, okay, maybe February, maybe next summer. But I had already told the teachers when the kids went into school, hey, you're going to have us until like December, and then Christmas break, we're going to move into this other house and they'll end up at this other school. And then I had to go back and be like, hey, by the way, we're going to be here all school year. February rolls around, nothing. This summer,
it's now June? Mid-June.
Yes. So 1 to 2 weeks ago, I heard from my realtor that he's ready to move forward again. He's going to find a rental in the state that he wants to live in, and we're good to go. And so I go to the person who's handling our mortgage, or will be handling our mortgage. And I said, okay, we're ready to get an updated pre-approval because it had been a winter. And I was a little afraid that some of my credit choices might have dipped my scores low enough that we wouldn't be able to go conventional because they have higher requirements with that. So I was like, okay, we need to get this moving and make sure that I still qualify and also make sure, since I've switched positions in the company and Brandon is now earning commission that we couldn't count last time, that everything's going to be fine as far as the numbers. Mm-hmm. So everything is fine. and my scores were great. Highest they've ever been in my life. Not great. They're not good scores, but they are above poor, which is fine by me. I know.
I'm sure about 90% of the people that will ever hear this will relate to that.
I know. And that's what's funny, because it's like,
my scores are the best they've ever been. They're excellent. Well, they're just above poor.
Yeah.
Like,
so
welcome to America.
I don't mind sharing my mid score when we did it, and we pull from all 3 bureaus. We use the one in the middle.
Yeah.
And when you do a mortgage pull, little insider info for you guys, it's not always the same as when you do other kinds. So there's 8 different kinds of FICOs.
Okay.
And the mortgage one is...
I have no idea.
Yeah. The mortgage one is very in-depth. And so you might think you have a certain score, and then you go to a lender to find out how much house you can have, and they'll tell you it's lower than you think it is every single time. Unless you happen to be someone who struggles with credit on the regular. A lot of them are very pleased with how much higher it is than they think it's going to be. But...
Well, isn't that a trip?
Yeah. But the thing is, like, when you're paycheck to paycheck and trying to, live
Survive.
life and still also enjoy life, you're going to run into times where life is throwing a bunch of curveballs at you, and you think, you know what, I am going to put this vacation on a credit card or whatever. And so it's those kinds of decisions that keep me where I'm at. My middle score, which means I have one higher and one lower, was a 680. So I'm almost in the 700s. And for me, it's a moment of pride because they've always been lower than that. But so I knew that our scores were fine, that we could use my commission, even though I had moved positions, and that we could use, even without using Brandon's commission, we were okay for this particular house. But using his commission, we have a wider range of options. So if something does pop up and this guy still drags his feet, we'll have like some wiggle room to play with if we want to.
Yeah.
But all of that to say, he said he was ready, and I got all of that ready, and now it's radio silence again. I just want the house with the pool.
I'd say it's time to let this dude go.
Yeah. If something else comes up, I'm just going to go for it.
That's a good point, though. Like, it's not like you've seen something else that you really want and that is available.
I did, but somebody hopped on it before I could even
Exactly.
go look at it.
And that's where we live right now. It's like, as soon as it goes on the market, if you don't claim it, within 12 hours sometimes, gone.
We had a weird... I love that this is morphed from cars into houses, but here we are. We had a weird situation happen from my perspective as someone who has been working in this industry lately.
Yeah.
So usually you'll either have a house go up and immediately get taken off, or there's a house that goes up and it's not like the most desirable of houses and it's still available a month later.
Okay.
There was a house in this same neighborhood. Not this neighborhood, but the neighborhood we were going to buy in.
Yeah.
Goes up. It's up for like 6 days. And once I figured out how much house we could be approved for, I was like, you know what, maybe I'll like take a look around and see if there's anything else. And I saw it and I was like, we could just move into that one. Like the kitchen was a little small, but the rest of the house was gorgeous. We showed it to Brandon. He's like, okay, we can go look at it. I don't like small kitchens because I spend a lot of time in the kitchen.
Seriously, that's an utter no. You need a big kitchen because you spend almost all your at-home time in the kitchen.
To me, a decent-sized kitchen is important. And there is one house available that has the hood on it. And I was like, that would be so much fun. But there's a lot about the house I didn't like. But I was almost like, we could buy that one for the kitchen, though.
Yeah.
But, so I was looking at that one, and I was like, let's just go see it. Maybe if I store all my kitchen stuff downstairs, kind of like I do here, I can make it work, whatever, if it's open enough, because they have like one of those islands and everything. So I was like, let's just go take a look at it. And I said something to my realtor, and it was when she reached out to ask, it had just gone pending. And I'm like, that's odd for it to sit there for like 5 days, 6 days. And then, oh, wait, no. Because they were going to have an open house, I think.
Yeah.
And then the offer came in first. But I was like, well, maybe that's a sign.
Maybe.
But I don't know. Here we still are with our 2-bathroom house. All I want is one more bathroom.
I know
half
I
a
do
bathroom.
it. I have two and a
half
half
a bathroom would be
and
great.
only 2 people. And sometimes I feel like I have a guest over and I'm like, man, I wish I had more bathrooms.
Like if me and the kids come over.
Or I think, man, it'd be nice to rent out my half-finished basement room to somebody and ease my mortgage stress a little bit. Except the half bath is on the middle level, so to rent to somebody, they'd have to use one of the bathrooms upstairs, and it becomes like a.
It would be really
thing.
nice to be able to build something because we have a lot of people building houses out here, but then you have to put your money down up front to hold the lot. And I get it, like they want that security, but like not everyone has
to do that.
Yeah, and it's like usually like $10,000 to $20,000 to do that. Whereas in this situation where we have a house to sell,
maybe that is what we should do to live together. We could build a custom home.
Do you have $20,000 that I can borrow from you?
Did you want to whine about your car repair? We never actually got to that.
I mean, I can, yeah, I can. It's just the whole thing that like cars are in constant need of repair and that it's pricey and whatever. And this one had very bad timing that we thought was going to screw us over, but then everything worked out. So I am happy about that. But
sometimes the cookie crumbles your way.
Right. So Brandon comes home Wednesday night. Yes, Brandon comes home Wednesday night.
Yeah.
What's really funny about this, let's give a little background here.
Context is key.
I had a weird work week. I don't usually work Wednesdays. But this week, I had scheduled, I was going to be off on Tuesday and work on Wednesday specifically to come in for a training. Mom had to take my kids on Wednesday when she doesn't normally. And then the rest of the work week would be normal. And I was going to have to come in like maybe 2 hours on Father's Day because every other month we have to come into the office on a weekend to do a little calling out. And I had unknowingly scheduled myself on Father's Day. And when I figured it out, I told Brandon, I was like, if we want to switch like some Sundays around so that I can be home on Father's Day, that's fine. And he's like, no, it's not a big deal. And it was only going to be for a couple of hours, whatever. So I was like, okay, I'll make you breakfast. I'll go into work. I'll make you dinner later that night, whatever. Don't tell him.
Secrets.
We won't post this until after Father's Day anyway. But last Sunday, I had each of the kids make him a little card. So they've all like done a little work on these. Eliana called him number one dad even. And then we pre-ordered him a video game, but since it's a pre-order, I just printed a picture of it.
Yeah.
And so we'll put all of these on his tray, bring him breakfast.
Aww.
And then I would go into work for a couple of hours and be back in time to cook him dinner, and we had a whole plan.
Yeah.
So Tuesday, we decide, since I have to come in Wednesday and it's not going to matter anyway, Tuesday we decide to both have the day off together and go out for lunch, and then he can pick the kids up because it's a normal day where mom watches them anyway. So we go out and we have this great time. We went to a steakhouse he'd been wanting to check out.
Ooh.
Yeah, it was good. They had morel mushrooms on one of their dishes.
Wow.
I know. And I was like, I'm really surprised that anyone's doing that.
As much as I hear about those and I live in a place where they exist, I don't think I've ever actually eaten one.
So and you fry them and they're just so creamy and buttery. Oh my god. Anyway, we digress. It was a great lunch. And then we went to a little coffee shop because we walked by it, and the coffee, they're smart. They had the door open. You could smell the beans from outside. And I was like, well, now that I've smelled it, I have to go have some. Went to Bath and Body Works because they were having their semi-annual sale. And then I go to work Wednesday. I find out the training's been moved to Thursday, and I could have just had Wednesday off anyway. But we both had a day off together. Fun, cool. It just inconvenienced my poor mom, So I'm like, okay, I guess I'll just still work Wednesday, and then we'll have the training on Thursday, whatever. Yeah. Wednesday night, he comes home and tells me that as he was driving home, he's getting these messages that the electrical system is failing. And he could not, after he turned it off, he could not turn it back on. So I was like, okay, we'll jump it in the morning. We'll take it up to the auto shop. That's literally, we are so lucky. Like, you go down a side road for like 5 minutes, not even that, and across the highway, and there's the auto shop. Thank God. So I was like, okay, we'll jump you. If it starts, we'll take you up there. So he jumps himself in the morning and turns the car off. And I said, why? What if it doesn't start the second time? Which it did. But yeah. But he barely made it to the shop before it was dead. Like, he didn't think he was going to make it. And we had done some reading. It was obvious it was probably the alternator. Turns out it was the alternator and a belt. So this is over $1,000 at this point, especially because his car, everything's extra expensive for no good reason. Like, tires are twice the price you think they're going to be. Alternator was 2 to 3 times the price we thought it was going to be. Everything's stupid expensive on this car. Even the windshield, to replace the windshield was going to be $500 instead of like $200 or whatever.
Oh man.
Yeah. So I don't know what special glass they're making his windshield out of, but everything is stupidly expensive on this car. So
it's made out of the glass that makes a CEO 7
yeah,
figure
exactly
salaries.
So we got it up there. We told the guy, like, payday is next week. So even if you agree to fix it, we can't pick it up until then. And we love this place. Like, they are very transparent, never trying to pull the wool over your eyes or talk you into a repair that you don't need. And I feel like their prices are fine. We could maybe get it a little cheaper somewhere else, but they're not shisty, and that's worth it to me.
Yeah.
So the guy's like, that's not a problem. If you want, we can just keep it up here until you can pay for it.
Yeah.
So then he also tells us that they do have this third-party financing, but the reason he doesn't recommend it to people is after 90 days, it goes up to 30%.
Whew.
Yeah. And there's
it's nice of him to warn people.
I know. And there's like an extra finance charge that gets added on at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So lucky us, we were going to have a little extra room in the budget. And I was going to save that
Ain't
back.
that the way it always works?
I was going to save that back for the moving fee or moving expenses that we're not going to have because this guy will never sell us this house. And then I was going to pay ahead on 2 cards. And I was like, well, between that, we can pay most of it. And then in July, we can pay the rest of it. And then we will have it paid off before the 90-day date.
Yeah.
So he went ahead and did it, and we got his car back. But all of that to say, I could not work Thursday, and now I have to work 10 hours on Father's Day. So he's going to have to make his own Father's Day dinner. But he said it was fine. So he's been very understanding since it's his car causing all the issues.
Sometimes you gotta be a little flexible.
Mm-hmm. And
you guys had your day date.
That's what he
nice.
said.
Yeah.
He said since we went out on Tuesday and got to enjoy a time by ourselves, that's fine.
Gonna make a head freezer casserole or something that you can just pop in the oven.
Right. Well, I told him, I said my plan was we have a couple fillets, and I said obviously it wouldn't be enough for everyone to have a full steak.
Right.
If you cut it into strips and put it in a salad and then have like a vegetable with it. And he's like, yeah, that sounds good. And I already have it marinating. He just has to cook up and slice the steak and put the salad together. So
not bad.
I want to do a special thing today. There's no Ari Alexa announcement.
She hasn't been talking to me on Alexa. I'm so sorry. But we do instead for you have a dramatic reading.
Yes.
From one of Amanda's children.
Let me set the scene. Our children have to rotate having turns on the family computer, and they never want to give it up willingly.
This is always the reason I give Ari to be grateful she doesn't have siblings. I said, you know how Amanda's kids have to share the computer? Imagine having to share your iPad.
And you're trying to play with one of them, and then they have to go for the other one to get on, and then your time is ruined. So we have time limits, and they rotate. And every time that it's time for Silas to get off, we have issues with the transition. So, and it was Eliana's turn, and she is not the most gentle when it comes to, okay, I'm going to let you finish things up, and then I'll get on, kind of a deal. But then also
She's
Silas
very
will
much
take advantage of it.
in charge.
Yes.
She will be a hashtag boss lady one day, for sure.
My jeans. So, and it comes with drawings. There's some drawings on here that you can picture while I'm reading this too. But Brandon says, Brandon goes, I don't know if he wrote it after Eliana got on or what the situation was, but he's like, he wrote her a very threatening letter. So I'm going to read the letter to you.
Okay, hold on.
I know. I'm going to see if I can get through this. No, I can't get through this. You will regret this. Unpatient brats. To brat. Unpatience. One time, I've waited more than 10 minutes for you. Ha ha! Ha ha, boo boo! I don't even know what it says on this page. Go look behind you! That's it. And see.
That was classic.
I kind of want to read that at open mic night at work.
You should. You should. But you have to include the page that you almost didn't know what it said, where it said, look behind you.
Go look behind you! Because it starts with like these little cramped together letters, and then it's big letters.
Oh my god, it's so funny.
Gosh. That kid.
That reminds me of a time where I was mad. I don't remember what fight it was between me and Mom, but I was in high school. I had a very serious long-term boyfriend and a journal, and Mom and I got into some sort of fight, some argument. I don't know what it was. And I wrote something in the journal that said something to the effect of, sometimes I wish she didn't exist or wasn't alive or something like that. Not me directly saying I want to hurt her, but wishing that she wasn't there.
Which kids do.
To interfere. Right. And she found it and read it.
Which moms do.
And wrote it in a letter form to my boyfriend, because we used to write letters back and forth all the time. But it was actually written in my journal and not an actual letter I would give to him, which is a therapeutic exercise, I will look back now and say.
Yeah.
By the way. I was wrongfully accused. But I was grounded from said boyfriend for quite a while for writing that letter. And Dad gave me the talk about, because he's in the mental health field as well. And when you write things like that.
Don't diagnose family.
When you write things like that, you can be committed to a mental health institution for threat to harm self or others, you know. And he was trying to educate me on that while also saying this is why we're taking it so seriously, because that's not something you can write willy-nilly about. Right. And it did prevent me from doing such things in the future, despite any thoughts I might have had. But I was grounded for quite some time for talking to my poor boyfriend on the phone for hours at a time. How dare they? Anyway, thanks for joining us as always. We've been all over the place today, but it's been fun. So thanks for hanging in.
I know it's been a little hectic lately with recitals and whatnot, but hopefully we'll be a little more consistent. I guess we really only skipped 1 week.
So. We really only skipped 1 week, but then we had 2 weeks where there were major issues.
That's
one
true.
Where you had to do a voiceover, and then one where my audio was horrific, so apologies. I don't know.
That one went up today.
Yeah.
And by today, I mean the day that we're recording this. So, but yeah, you can find us on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Spotify, workingmomswine.com. We have a Patreon at patreon.com/workingmomswine. It'd be really great to get a new microphone. So look, it's just adding up, you guys. Nikki's laptop doesn't work. My microphone just quit.
We're about to lose this podcast.
I almost wondered if it would be a good idea to take a little break, but then I thought we should hit like that 1 year of videos mark, and then we can take a little break, maybe for the holidays or something.
Yeah. We can do this.
Yeah. I need those Black Friday microphone sales.
We're ready for them.
Yep. But we will see you guys next time.
Bye.